Hi, everybody. In this video, what we are going to do is sort of a walkthrough of what we did last night, but in a more complete manner. So as I mentioned when we started our web shell assignment, it's great to go ahead and initially storyboard. And I've kind of storyboarded tonight's presentation out, what I'm going to create here. And I'm going to make this adaptable. So this is storyboarded for both a linear and a nonlinear presentation. So the linear, they can watch it. Users can watch it in sort of a video type format where they go from slide to slide to slide and the narration kind of guides them along the way. Or I can have them interact with it in a nonlinear way. And I can embed a video, convert it to a video and embed that in my page, but then also have maybe an embedded PowerPoint, which is more interactive. So here I have my title slide. Then I have a table of contents slide. Now this is going to be used in both of these will be used for both the linear and nonlinear, but essentially on the nonlinear, the timeline will link here will go to this timeline slide here, slide 4. In the linear one, it'll go to this timeline slide in which it'll sort of do a little animation, and then it'll transition directly to the video slide. Here, this link will go to the video slide down here. And then the closing link on the table of contents will go here. These 4 slides here, the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, are going to be invisible during the video version, but I may highlight those individual points when the timeline here is being animated. So to make this linear, I'm going to simply hide the nonlinear slides. So this timeline slide here and these 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s slide, I'm going to go ahead and hide those as well. A couple of things that we've done here. These on the timeline side, all of these are linked. So these images go, and as well as you can't see them, but there's some dates down here. They go to the individual slides. The tab here goes back to the table of contents slide. And here it's not active. Well, it is active, but it doesn't need to be active necessarily if we're watching it in a linear fashion. And then you'll see here that the slide that they're on is highlighted, and then there's a back to timeline slide. There's a UCF link here, email link here, and a click here to end show. There's a caption here. One of the elements that is not included in this presentation is the text over an image. So we'll look at that separately. But just make sure that you have text on an actual image that was addressed in last night's video. So I went ahead and created this and kind of wanted to show you what it looked like from a linear perspective first, and then from a nonlinear perspective. And then we're sort of reverse engineer it. So here I've kind of created these banners. I have the table of contents. I've done the links here. Then the timeline video, you'll see these images off to the side. They're going to fly in using motion paths, as this right here is going to transition along the timeline. Then I have some hidden slides, and these are for the nonlinear navigation. I have the timeline, and I will tell them, hey, click on the dates or the images, and you'll be taken to that slide. Also click on the tab. Then I have the 1960 slide where this information animates 70s, 80s, and 90s. Notice how they're all struck through over here. That means they're hidden. So they won't show up on the animated version. Then I have my origins video, which I would then just advise to go through, and then the closing slide. So let's look at it very quickly from a linear perspective. So I've already kind of set it up. Now here, I haven't narrated it, but I would simply narrate. I'll show you that in a minute. Then click on the timeline. So this video, I would walk through verbally what the video addresses. Then I would bring it to the timeline slide, and I could talk through the 1963 UCF. What became UCF was established as Florida Technological University. It changed its name in 1978. In the 80s, there are a number of events that happened. One was our program, blah, blah, blah. So you can just narrate it as the timeline is going on. Then once the timeline is finished, then I would click enter, and it goes to the video. I would say simply something, click on the play button below to watch this video, but I'm not going to put you all through that. And then for closing, I would narrate this slide as I talk about the individual elements, and I'll do that in a little bit later. So now here, if I wanted to actually now kind of make it nonlinear, then I would hide this slide and I right click and hide it. I would unhide this slide, 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 and then I would just go through it. So here, I'm going to go ahead and play, quick narration, click on the items you want. So they click on the timeline. Whoops. So here I actually have to change it. I guess let me make this go to the correct slide, which is the other timeline slide. So I'm just going to highlight it, right click, edit link, and I'm going to go to this slide. Okay. So that's a quick edit. So clicking back here, go to the timeline slide. Now I can click on any of these. So if I want to go to the 60s, I click on that image, go back to the timeline. Also, I can click on the dates and notice how it's nice and highlighted there. 70s there. I would talk about these points. Notice they gray out. We're going to kind of reverse engineer this. Go back to the timeline, go to the 90s, and then go back to the timeline, go back to my thing, go to the video, go back to my table of contents, go to the closing slide. If I want to click on UCF site, I'd do that here. For more information, there's my email address, and then click here to end the show, and we're good to go. So we're going to kind of reverse engineer this. So I'm going to move this and just open a new PowerPoint button. And again, I have all of my items collected and ready to go for this. So I'm going to go to PowerPoint. And I'm just going to create a new presentation. Okay. And I'm just going to get going. So real quickly, I'm going to go history of UCF, 60s. Through 90s. Go ahead and bold this. Okay, and I'm just going to type my name. Okay, I'm going to stylize this just a bit. Actually, I don't like that bold, so I'm going to unbold it. Okay, I'm going to stylize this a bit. I'm going to insert a shape. So insert, and I like to use this kind of to layer things a bit. So I'm just going to click on this, maybe make it like about there. Right click on it, make it black, and just do the same thing down here. You can actually just copy it, paste it, move it down. That looks good. Now I have the UCF tab, so I'm going to go ahead and include that. So I'm going to go insert picture from this device. And again, I've collected all of these images. And okay, and I'm just going to make this really big. Kind of put it along here. And then I'm going to click on the image effects, the picture styles kind of breakout here. And I have these options to edit the image. So I can, if I wanted to modify the fill, I could do that. The line, I could do that. I'm going to click on this image icon. I'm going to go to my transparency, and I'm just going to make it like pretty transparent here, maybe like an 87%. Okay. Then I'm going to look at some of these picture effects here. I kind of like some of these, but let me kind of click down a little bit. Maybe this kind of thing here, I like that. It kind of gives it a little, instead of the straight up and down look, kind of that oval look. And I'm good to go. I like this. So now I'm going to move on. I'm just going to insert a new slide. And this is just going to be table of contents. And I'm going to add timeline. I'm going to add video. And I'm going to add closing. I don't need these bullets, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn them off because I'm not presenting the content there. And then I'm just going to go to my next slide, and that's going to make my timeline. So I'm going to go to Insert, New Slide. And it doesn't really matter. I'm going to do a blank slide because I'm not going to use any of the content. Actually, let me change that to a title only slide. And then I'm going to timeline. And I'm going to, remember, I'm going to kind of draw this sort of aspect here where there's these pictures that are going to kind of fly in, and then this timeline here is going to move along that tab. It's not going to be perfect for time's sake, but we're going to see what we can get done here that is useful. So I'm going to insert to do that timeline feature. I'm simply going to insert a shape and just put it down towards the bottom here. Okay, something like that. Then I'm going to make it black. So boom, and I'm going to insert some text boxes. So I'm going to insert a text box just like right here. I'm just going to say 1960. Kind of center that maybe. And I'm going to kind of highlight it and then make it white. And maybe make it a little bit bigger, bold. You can kind of play around with that however you want. Then I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to paste it. And one of the cool things I can do then with a text box is I can now make this sort of a hotspot. So I can make that box, even though it's invisible, I can link it to something. So, which is what we're going to do in a few minutes. And then we'll do one more. Okay. And then I'm just going to real quickly go in and change these. Okay. So next I'm going to have content come in. So I'm going to do one more text box, insert. I'm going to do a text box, and I'm going to do a shape. Shape. I'm just do a square, kind of square here, and I'm going to kind of draw it over this one here. Getting something started here, and I'm going to go to the shape fill, and I'm going to make it white. But I'm also going to click on this transparency feature over here, and I'm going to make it maybe like a 62%. And then what's going to happen is as time goes on, this is going to move along here. Well, to do that, we're going to add an animation. So I'm going to double click on it and go to my animations tab. And I have all of these options, but I'm going to click, I can have it animate on the entrance, I can provide some emphasis on the exit. I'm going to do a motion path, and you can click here and get more motion paths, but I'm just going to do a line, and it says down now, but that's fine. So what I want to do then is bring this red line over to here. Now, I see that I have my options up here in my animation. It says start on click. Well, I don't want it to start on click. I want it to start off automatically. And then I'm going to make it each slide I'm going to make, or each image 8 seconds, and then no delay here. So then next thing I'm going to do is start defining my images to come on. So real quickly, if I wanted to see this, okay, if I wanted to see this, then I would simply click play here, and you'll see that it starts moving along here very slowly. So maybe I'm going to make that instead of 32, maybe I'll make it 24. Okay. So now I'm going to start inserting images and having them come in. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert image, picture from this device. And my 1960 image is the FTU, this one right here. So I'm just going to real quickly reduce the size just by dragging it. I'm going to add some opacity there. So I'm going to go to my picture thing here, click on the image, give it some kind of general opacity just to make it a little more stylized. And then I'm going to give it sort of a flared, sort of a glow there. And then my alt label, I want to put FTU 1963. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have it come in. So I'm going to actually pull it off of the screen here a little bit. And what I want to happen is I want it to kind of pop over here as this timeline starts. So I'm going to add that animation back. Animation, add animation. I'm going to do the motion path. Let's go, we'll do sort of a diagonal. It doesn't matter because we can just modify it. That's not good. There we go. Try this one. So down right, definitely not where I want it to go. So I'm going to click on this arrow here, and I'm just going to have it kind of appear maybe somewhere over here. So now I'm going to go to my second image, which is the 1970s image. And I'm going to have it kind of from the same sort of thing, do the same sort of thing, insert picture, this device, UCF. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bigger, maybe kind of drag it over here, kind of get it comparable in size. That looks okay. Alt text, I'm going to edit the alt text and say UCF name change. Okay. I'm going to have it over here. I'm going to give it some opacity. It's relatively close. And then I'm going to give it that kind of same kind of effect there. I'm going to kind of have it off of here. And then I'm going to add an animation. And I'm going to add the motion path. So I'm going to add animation, more motion path. And I want it to go down, diagonal, left, but there isn't that option. So I'm just going to go up. Okay. And you can see that it gives me the end point here. So I'm going to move that kind of over here. Okay. So now I'm going to just play. I'm only going to do these two just for time's sake. But here I'm going to go click on it, go to my animation tab. And here I'm going to say I want it to start with the previous. I want it to be 8 seconds because there's going to be 4 of them. And it's the total time of the timeline spanning is 32 seconds. And I don't want this one to delay at all. I want it to kind of pop out immediately because it's when I'm talking about the 1960s. Then here, this one also, I'm going to go to my animation. I'm going to have it start with the previous. I want it to also be 8 seconds, but I want it to delay 8 seconds because I want it to come on second. Then after the animation, what I want to happen is I want them to fade out. So I'm going to go back to my animations tab. I'm going to look at my animation pane here. And if I click on this drop down, you can kind of get a vision of what's going on. But I want to add this effect option. And the effect option that I want to happen is I want it to hide after it's done animating. Because then this one, the second one will, so this will pop on. And then after it's done animating, after 8 seconds, boom, it'll disappear. So then I want to do the same thing for the second one. I want to have it disappear. So with previous 8 seconds, it's going to delay 8 seconds. And I'm going to click on here, go to my effect option, and I'm going to have it hide after the animation. Click OK. So real quickly, I'm just going to look at what this looks like. So here I would start animating the 1960s. FTU was created, blah, blah, blah. And boom, in 1978, we had our name change to the University of Central Florida. So I might mess with the timing here, but hopefully y'all kind of get the gist of how you can use that to really kind of engage your users in your particular content. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this, and I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to take this image, move it over here above 160. I'm going to take this image, move it over this right here. I'm going to go ahead and add another image. The 1980s is going to be when we created our program. And then in the 1990s, insert picture, this device, 1990. There we go. So now I'm going to put this one here. Real quickly, I'm going to make this smaller. I'm going to make this smaller. Let me put it here. Let me kind of play around with these a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and delete those motion paths because I don't want them animated. And I'm going to take this one, make it smaller. I'm going to make this one up here, put it up there, something like that. Definitely make this one small. Try and get them relative sizes to be the same. I'm going to delete this motion. Whoops. Delete this motion path. Okay. And I'm going to just kind of move this down for now. Let's see if I may not need it. Okay, and then I'm going to highlight this, give it the similar kind of opaqueness. That looks maybe right there. Give it the blurred edges. Nope, that's not it. There we go. And then same thing with this one, only this one, I'm going to change the color to black to grayscale. Then I'm going to give it the opacity. There, that looks good. And I'm going to give it that same effect, the blurred edges thing there. So now I'm going to kind of play around with these, get them to what I want the size to be. That looks okay. That looks okay. Then I'm going to insert a shape. And I'm just going to do a line. And what I'm going to do is kind of highlight this, just click it here. And I'm going to double click on it, make it black or gray or whatever. And I'm going to give it a little bit more weight. And maybe give it some opacity here. I'm not sure. Let's see. A little bit of transparency. Yeah, a little better. Okay. And I'm just going to copy this and paste it 4 times. Okay, so then I'm going to move it over. So that I can kind of play around with the size of the, or the locations of the images there. Move this one over and then move that over a bit. So looks relatively okay. So now I'm going to simply go here. I'm going to copy this 4 more times. I'm going to right click, duplicate slide, right click, duplicate slide. We'll pause right there for that one. We'll go ahead and delete this. And this one's going to be my 1960 slide. This one's going to be my 1970 slide. Let me just go ahead and duplicate 1980 slide and then duplicate 1990 slide. Okay. I'm just going to do one of these for time's sake, and I'll kind of link to the final version. But so here, I'm going to link this to my 1960 slide. So I'm going to go right click, link, and I'm going to link to the 1960 slide. Okay. And I'm also going to click on this text here, right click, just the text box, go to link and my 1960 slide. Okay. Same thing for the 70s. Link 70 slide. Okay. Link 70 slide. Okay. I'm not going to do it for these just for time's sake. Then I'm going to go to my 1960s slide and I'm going to delete all this stuff. I had this here, so I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to put this over here. I can change the layout to this 2 content kind of layout. Whoops. Let me see if I can change the layout of this one. Yeah, here we go. Change the layout. You can just delete this here. Highlight this, move it over a little bit, maybe move this up a bit. I don't know. Okay. And then in the 1960s, we had a few things happening. We had, it was FTU established. 63. Okay, maybe stylize these a bit, give them a different color, kind of something, kind of grayscale a little bit. Okay, I don't need bullets because I'm only talking about these 2 points here real quick. So I want to animate these and I want to focus the user's attention. So I'm going to have them appear. I'll go to my animation pane. And what happens was, so I want this to appear without any clicks. So notice the 0, that means the number of clicks it takes for that to appear. So when they get to this slide, FTU is going to appear there. Then I want this one, after I talk about it, they would click on it, and then the first graduating class. So I'm going to go over to my animation. I'm going to click Start on Click. And then I want this one to gray out whenever they are done, they're done talking, and click on the next one. So I'm going to have this gray out here. And there we go. So we kind of see, if I kind of reviewed that, boom, boom, and then it moves on to the next slide. So real quickly here, I'm also going to add, I want a way for them to get back to the timeline. So I'm going to insert a text box. And I'm going to do this below the timeline. And I'm just going to say back to timeline slide. Oh, you know, you can kind of play around with it, stylize it later. I'm just going to, okay. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to right click, link. I could also insert link and then find my timeline slide. I want to go to the second one because the first one is the one that has the stuff on it. Then I would real quickly, I could just go and do this, delete this slide. Could go real quickly here, move it up a bit, copy it, paste, paste, paste. So you get the gist of it. Obviously, so each of these slides are going to have content on them. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the 1970 slide. I'm not going to do that here because just for time's sake, like I said, but all I would just do is I would move this on this side. I would move this over here, delete all this stuff. Move this over. I could actually just highlight this text. Whoops, I didn't undo. Highlight this text, and it's going to give me those build options already built in, so I don't have to redo them. Let me just do something differently here. Let me copy this whole text box here. So now I could go in the 1970s, UCF name, and that was 1978. And then I might say something like athletics, first graduate degree. $1970, and then moving on. So notice here they have these, so I could actually click on this, boom, boom, and then talk about it. So we're going to stop there, but with that content, one thing I've noticed is that I want to be able to get back to the table of contents. I also haven't made these links yet. So for the table of contents, I'm going to, on each of the slides, I'm going to click, I'm going to insert the tab, insert. Now, a couple of things you could do. You could do a shape. You could do a home button. There are these action buttons down here. So I could kind of click this, hyperlink to. You don't want to go to the first slide. You want to go to the table of contents side. So I'm going to click here. And then I could just copy and paste that on each side, and it'll go back to it. But it's not really stylized. I want to use the tab. So I'm going to go Insert, Picture, select the UCF tab. I'm going to make it smaller, put it up here. And I'm going to right click on it, or I'm actually going to go to insert, and I'm going to insert an action just to show you, hyperlink to, and I'm going to select slide ... and I'm going to select table of contents. Click OK. OK. So now I'm just going to copy it and go to this slide, paste, this slide, paste, this slide, paste, this slide, paste. Then I'm going to, let me go ahead real quickly, insert a closing slide. So I'm going to say, or a video slide, sorry. And then insert a new slide, a closing slide. Okay. So for the video slide, I'm real easily going to just go, I'm going to that's the closing slide. In the video, I'm just going to go to Insert, and over here you'll see Video. I'm going to say an online video. I'm just going to copy the URL, paste it. Insert, and then I make it as big as I want. Insert maybe a little caption for it down below. Center it, move on there. And then I'm going to have closing. And on the closing slide, I'm going to say, one of the requirements is an email link. You can do it like this, or you could also do insert link, email address, and then just put the email address in the subject there. And then you have click here to end show. I'm going to space these out just for some little stylizing. I'm going to get rid of the bullets because we're not doing a bulleted kind of presentation. Here for UCF site, I'm just going to right click, insert, and I'm going to go existing file or web page, and just click UCF's website. Okay, click here to end show. I'm going to highlight, right click. I'm sorry, not right click. I'm going to go to insert, and this is an action, and I'm going to hyperlink to ... or I'm sorry, end show, and we're good to go. So I have my video done. I have these done. Obviously, these are so I do want to go ahead real quickly, copy this, paste it here, so then they can get to the home slide at any point. I need to do the timeline links here. Because I'm not using this in the nonlinear one, I'm going to just go ahead and directly link to the second timeline. So I'm going to go right click, link, and place in this document timeline. Okay. Video, right click, link, video, right click, link, closing. Okay. Now for the timeline here, I'm not going to do anything, but for this timeline, I'm going to do a few things. I've already done those two links. What I would do is then simply take these, copy it, and then I'm just going to go here. I'm actually going to move it up for this. I'm going to delete those and I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to move this back down. And what I've done is I've made those the links. So, and then I'm just going to do the same thing here, move this up. Delete, paste. So the ones that I've made the links are going to be effective. So, okay, so I'm pretty much done. I'm going to now real quickly run through narration. A couple of ways of doing this. One is I can go to audio and record audio and click here, and it's going to record on us for a specific slide. And you can, this is a great way to just do it from slide to slide to slide, and then click OK. Gives me this speaker here. You don't want it there. You may not even want it on the slide at all. Just depends. But what you can do is you can then you can click animation. And notice how it has one. So that means that the user has to click on it for it to show up. Well, I don't want that to happen. I want it to just start automatically. I don't want it to loop or anything. And there's actually a bunch of audio things you can do. You can delay it. You can actually trim it. You can do a lot of content. So if you had some errors there, but that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing the audio from slide is to import audio. So if I go back here and I go to let me go to insert. I can go audio. from a PC. So if I'm familiar with Audacity or something like that, then I can really quickly just do a audio on your PC. You can also do this screen recording if you wanted to record yourself presenting it, and it saves it as a movie, and then you can import that into your slideshow, into your web page. But the one way I like to do is if I have my content and my notes. So down here, I'm going to have my notes. So I might have, narration. Welcome to blah, 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 blah. But some other things I might have in my notes would be, this is where I would put the image edit. So here, I'm put image opacity was removed, large and safe. Here, for example, on the slide with the timeline, oh, let me put where the UCF tab came from. And then from the other things, I would just maybe in my notes section, like down here, for example, click, boom. But I could also use this for narration, which makes it easy. I could also write it out very easily. So let's see, I think we have everything mostly done here. Okay, so now to record, I would just go to the record option and go to from the beginning, or I could just do audio here. But I'm going to do the recording. Okay, so it's kind of, so my notes are up there. So I messed up, so I'm going to escape. So now so if I go to slide, okay, I don't see any, oh, because I didn't start the recording. From the beginning. So there's the record option here. You see my notes there, and then down here. So I click record. And welcome to my presentation on the history of UCF, blah, blah, blah. This presentation will walk through a timeline of the 60s through the 90s. There will be a nice video and then some closing information. And then I would narrate the timeline, etc. But let's say here I messed up and I want to restart this one. So I'm going to escape. And so I have my narration here. I'm going to click on it. You can see it's a 0 already here, so that's perfect. I might move it off the screen, like I said, because there's no need for them to see it. Same thing with this one. It's already narrated at a 0. But for number 3, I don't like that one, so I'm going to delete it. So, but I only want to do slide 3. Slide 4 is already good. So what I do here is I'm going to go from the current slide. I'm going to record. And current slide. Oh, I have to, okay, that's nice. It kind of gets you to where you can't delete the audio. So let's go to this one, see. So I'm going to record from the current slide. Record. Okay, here's some information on the timeline, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm done with this. I like the way it sounds. So I'm just going to hit escape. And that allows me to only record for that slide. So if I kept going and hit enter or spacebar and then started recording here, it would override anything there. So then here, I'm just going to highlight it. Notice it's at 0 and I'm good to go. So that's kind of the gist of it. There are a few elements that, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I'm done with this. I like the way. There are a few elements that we didn't talk about. What I'm going to do is ultimately kind of upload the final product. But this right here runs through everything that we've done, with the exception of the image editing and some of the more advanced image editing. What I did is I found a really great resource for Photoshop that talks about layers and fine tuning and those sorts of things. So I will share that resource rather than spend, another hour going through the functionality of that. But again, as I mentioned last night, there are tons and tons of tools. If you choose to watch this one instead, the confirmation code is super easy, barely an inconvenience. So you can watch this, and I'll make a note of that in the presentation. You can watch either one of those. All right, and I will also share, sort of like I mentioned, a final product. Thanks, and I hope this was useful.